unit. I was attached to a cavalry unit, and we basically, whenever they went out, we went out. And there were a few times where we did engine and pack replacements and fuel cell replacements in the field, but mostly that was done in the rear at the time.
Yeah, was there a leader that you remember from your time in service that made an impact on you?
Captain Michael P. Anderson, probably the greatest American I've ever met in my life.
Outstanding.
The pride he was your typical all-American, New York, blue-eyed, tall guy, and he would stand out there and bring us to attention in the morning, and you could just see the pride on his face and in his eyes every single morning. And what an influence he had on me, and it's just someone I'll never forget.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's interesting how you meet people from so many different walks of life, and they have this influence on you, and your world just really starts expanding when you join the service, and that's fantastic. Were there any lessons that you learned that were kind of different or stood out that you still apply today?
Be prepared for what you don't know is coming. And I think since my military career started, I wake up in the morning and I know what I have to do, so I wake up and get those things done. So I'm prepared for what I don't know is coming down the road.
I know this. He was up at 3 this morning in his vehicle headed from the Outer Banks to Raleigh, so that he would get there on time and make sure the citizens of North Carolina were squared away. So
and we need that squaring away some days.
Yeah, that's for sure.
We surely do.
Yeah,
we surely do.
That's for sure.
So what was your transition like? What was it like going from uniform to civilian life, and tell us a little bit about that.
It really wasn't that difficult. I served 4 years, and honestly, I was a lifer, man. I made sergeant in 2.5 years, and I was fast tracking, and I really enjoyed the military and the folks that I worked with. Still friends with lots of those folks today, and really miss them. So coming out wasn't that difficult. I started right out of the military. I got a job as a railroad mechanic. So I was traveling a lot. I traveled a lot more as a railroad mechanic than I did in the military. That's for sure. But I'm a pretty adaptable kind of guy. Whatever comes at me, I learn it fast, and try to give it everything I got. I always dive in with both feet, so it wasn't that difficult for me. I tell you, the difficult transition was for the folks that I served with. I was stationed down in Fort Polk, and no, I didn't make anybody mad before I got there. They just sent me there.
It's not a fun place to be.
I served with a lot of folks that came out of Vietnam, and that's pretty much where a lot of folks went to finish out their career, and that's when I first started realizing what the effects of war have on people, and to see how these folks acted, and the different situations that we would get into, and they would just have a reaction that I would have never expected. And I really started getting an understanding of what PTSD is, and the scars that folks bring home from war. So I think that was my biggest takeaway as far as folks transitioning out of the military. What are they going to do when they get out?
Yeah.
That was pretty tough to watch.
It's interesting. You kind of went into the railroad business after you transitioned out. My only experience with rail yards was at Fort Bragg and loading up all of our howitzers and the unit's tanks and all the different equipment onto rail cars to be shipped out to California when we did a rotation in NTC, and then we took them down to Fort Polk, and then eventually took them to be loaded up on the ships to take over to Iraq, and that's some really scary work. I mean, that's dangerous.
Yeah, heavy.
I would go down to the Port of Beaumont and load the ships for when we would have reforge or send them out off to NTC on the rail yards. I was a mechanic on the railroad that we fixed. I worked on equipment that maintain the tracks. kept them straight, kept them in line, and all that stuff. So I wasn't working on the locomotives as I was working on all the equipment.
Mm-hmm.
That's really neat. And how long did you do that? And where did you live at that time? Or Banks a number of years back when you.
My office was in Chesapeake. I lived in Colorado for a little bit. Denver was a good hub for me. I had a 21 and 10 schedule. I was on 21 off 10. So that was a good place for me to fly in and out of. And I worked mostly, I would start in Texas in February. And as weather progressed, we would work our way to the north and, work Colorado, Wyoming, the Dakotas, Montana, Idaho, Washington, California, and then work our way back as weather progressed. So
how'd you end up at the Outer Banks? How did that all go down?
Man, I couldn't get there fast enough. In my, I got to tell you, in my misspent youth, spent every waking moment that I could heading to the Outer Banks, whether it was the 4x4 area, which was completely desolate. We'd come in through Sandbridge at the time the gate was open, and just go to the 4x4 beach, spend the weekend there, right on the beach. You weren't considered camping if you had a fishing pole. So we always brought a fishing pole with us. I don't think we ever caught a fish. I had an incident at the, kind of a long story short, I had an incident at the Duck Research Pier one Sunday morning, dropped in on a wave and really cut my foot really, really bad. And, tried to tough it out for a couple hours. And we realized that I needed some medical attention. So we were heading back, and I was coming through Grandy, North Carolina. And we saw the Wright little clinic right on the side of the highway. And I said, well, let's pull in there. Maybe I saw the house behind there. And we pulled up, and Dr. Wright came out. And he said, what can I help you boys with? And he cleaned my foot up really good. I had to go to Oceana, to get medical attention. But he cleaned my foot up really good. He was smoking a cigarette the whole time he was talking to me and cleaning my foot up. It was awesome. And just a great guy, just as Curry Tuck as Curry Tuck gets, And he cleaned me all up, bandaged me up, stopped the bleeding, and, told me, make sure I get that taken care of. And he wouldn't take a payment. I mean, he would not take any money, wouldn't take my information, nothing. He said, just, if someone's in need, you just help them out one day, and then we'll call that square.
That always increases my confidence in a doctor when he's puffing on a Marlboro menthol while he's doing the work on me. Yeah, it's going to be fine. Hold on. Yeah. Yep. All right. Yeah, let's take care of this. Right.
So, I don't think he ever.
We're going to have to talk about that later, Brad.
I said, that's the kind of people I need to be around. And I've got a couple buddies to this day that, I told them that, I'm moving to North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
This is where I want to live someday. And, I did my traveling around, and when it was time, I moved to the Outer Banks, and, that was kind of a semi-spur of the moment decision. I had gotten a promotion and went down to Colombia, South America. I was supposed to be there for about a month. And this was in the late 80s, the height of the cocaine wars, and I volunteered to go down there.
You made a great decision to move to the greatest state in the country. We're really glad to have you. It's time for us to take a quick break,
Okay.
And so I hate to interrupt you there. Great story. Want to hear some more of it. We'll be back here just in a few moments. You're listening to Putting the Pieces Back Together, presented by Purple Heart Homes. You don't want to miss the next segment, as Devil Dog Devin is getting challenged by Miss Carrie.
Hey, welcome back to Putting the Pieces Back Together, presented by Purple Heart Homes. You can find out more about us at phhusa.org, and it's everybody's favorite time of the week. We have the devil dog himself, Devlin McGregor, here to tell us about the project of the week, and we've got an additional guest in the studio, and there's some rumor that Devin's getting fired.
Oh, my.
Well, he's going on these special missions to undisclosed locations and leaving a void, and so there's a need for backfilling. What do you backfill the devil dog with?
Well, the torch, maybe.
The torch. They
Ladies
seem
and
to go
gentlemen,
hand in hand.
Without further ado, let's welcome the torch to the studio. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning.
Yeah,
Great.
you don't sound very torchy this morning.
Do I not? Maybe I haven't had enough coffee yet.
That's right. We get some more coffee in.
So what should a torch sound like? Good morning.
Yeah. Something like that. Yeah. Something like that. Good morning. Like one of those death metal bands, you know.
Well, I'll tell you what. Why don't I just this Carrie's my boss, the torch, and when I upset her, I can tell you, I can hear the fire. So
you get burned. Is that what you're saying?
That's
you
right.
get burned when you upset her?
I can tell when she's mad at you by the way she walks from our building to your building. She's on a mission, and there's literal fire coming off of her head.
See, I can tell not by Carrie, but I can tell by Devin when he gets really soft and he doesn't speak very loud.
That means the torch has been on him. Yeah, that means he's been torched.
what's my favorite? What did I do or didn't do?
That's right. It's not my fault. It's not my fault.
Well,
it's not my fault.
Let's get into what the listeners want you to do, and let's hear about our project of the week.
The project of the week. Yeah, we got one of those. Hey, that one happens to be down here on the east coast of North Carolina.
Oh, how ironic is that?
I know. It's almost as if it were planned. We've got a veteran down there, Specialist Mills, and he lives in Jamesville. And this veteran, his whole house is basically collapsing around him, and he was limited to a bedroom and a bathroom, in a wheelchair, couldn't get around his house, and thanks to some special grant partners, we were able to go in, and we're able to do so much for this particular veteran because of these grants that we're getting, and we're doing a new roof. Well, one side's being repaired, one side's being replaced by that metal is being donated by CMP. They're a great partner. We're repairing and replacing the subfloor. We have cabinets that are being donated by PHH, flooring, sink. And when it's all done, if we've got enough money left, we're going to replace the HVAC as well.
Everything, including the kitchen sink.
Everything, including. I mean, you couldn't have planned it better. And I just got to say, sometimes you have a veteran that falls in between those areas of service of like Vietnam and Desert Storm, and those aren't the Glory Day veterans, and people don't want to help them. But PHH, we help all veterans.
What's our motto? Does it matter where you served? When you
I was
served?
trying to figure out
What
which
day
one
you
you were,
served?
which one that you were talking about. The motto of the radio show, or the motto of the
The motto of the radio show is driving listeners away one at a time.
Mottos do we have?
Yeah, we got a lot of mottos.
Well, Brad introduces a new one every time he says the word motto.
I think we get a new motto more often than I get a new name.
Yeah. We'll just make every Monday before the show. It'll be Motto Monday. It'll be our new motto for the week, right? The weekly motto. So, but thank you, Devin. That's awesome, man.
Devin, that's great and great work.
Are you the project manager on that one?
I am not. That's Miss Tammy Burchett, and she's doing a great job.
Okay.
And if you would like to help Mr. Mills or any other veteran, go to phhusa.org.
That'd be awesome. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that.
Fantastic. And, there's so many veterans that are out there, and Devin, you really hit the nail on the head. The Cold War era veterans really get the short end of the stick. And, just as we were talking about with the senator here a few moments ago, this, idea of railhead work and loading up, rail cars, there's so many veterans that I know of that have been injured doing that work. It's extremely heavy, very dangerous work. And just to give you a little bit of a mental picture, one of the last vehicles that I put on the railhead was a M1 Abrams, and it has about 6 inches of the inside of each track that's the only thing you're driving on. The rest of the track, the rest of the tank is hanging over the edge of the rail car, and you're driving it. You don't drive it onto one, then they move the rail cars around and hook up the next one. You drive it down 100 rail cars. And you're driving over the end of the rail cars all the way down to get to the end. And so there's 4 ground guides standing on the corners of the vehicle that are all communicating with each other and with the driver, so that you can know how to maneuver the tank to get it
I
from
imagine
one rail
that is
car
not
to the
done
next.
at full throttle either.
It's not only not done at full throttle. Let me just say, everything is puckered.
No, that's right. That's what I was going to say. Yeah. You got a little chart on the inside of the tank during that, and it says pucker factor from 1 to 10, and you're at a 10 the whole
Yeah, you
time.
just throw the chart out the hatch. You don't even need the chart. You know. Yes. You know.
And
So it's
I imagine
dangerous.
that's digitized now. It's probably they probably have lights now, right? On the LED screen, pucker factor.
The Army's not that advanced. Now, it might be that way in other branches, but I heard the Marines are getting rid of the tanks, so they don't even need that anymore. They just
the
gonna
Marines are tanks.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Oh, here we go.
Okay, let's get back to the senator and somebody that speaks
All
truth.
right. Yes. Enough of that.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, you're listening to Putting the Pieces Back Together. And we got our guest is Senator Bobby Hanig from down on the coast, and he represents a district of about 10 folks. Bobby, after you left working in the rail company,
Wait a minute. He represents a district of 10 folks. Is that all? He brought all the listeners today.
Yeah, he did.
All the listeners.
I meant
Okay.
I should have said 10 counties. 10 counties full of folks. Right? So,
I got 10.
yeah, 10 people. Yeah, driving listeners away again. So, but anyhow, hey, after you left working on the railroads, you moved to the Outer Banks. You started a business down there. Tell us a little bit about that business that you got going.
I did. It's Hanig Services. I've got a company called the Pool Guy, a company called the Tool Guy that is dormant right now because of my service here at the state level. Just can't manage it all. And I've got a cabana service called Cabana Bob's. I had a property management business that I started in 2004 with a partner, and I sold that in 2015. Best thing I ever did was start it. The next best thing I did was sell it.
That's right.
That gives me time and the ability to do what I do here, which is amazing.
Yeah, and so the pool guy, obviously, I guess it's a pool maintenance company where you're taking care of folks' pools. You don't install pools. You're taking care of the pools that people have.
That's correct. It's all property management stuff, vacation rentals. We do full service pool and spa repairs, service, hot tubs, you name it. We pretty much do everything in house.
All right. So which begs this question: so how does a tank mechanic, a railroad mechanic, a pool guy, a cabana bob, how does a guy like that get to be sitting in Raleigh making decisions on behalf of the people of North Carolina and doing it well? How does all that go down?
All right, I'm going to give you the long version as short as possible.
All right.
So when I first moved to the Outer Banks, the company I worked for was digging a hole, getting paid $300 to put a pool in it. And I asked my boss, I said, why aren't we putting in pools? He said, we don't know how. I said, well, let's learn. So we started putting in pools, and then, most of the folks on the Outer Banks that have homes are absentee owners. They needed someone to take care of it. So I started that business working on that kind of thing, and just kind of moved along. And in 2008, 2009 timeframe, I built a new building for Hanig Services and ran into some issues with my fire marshal. I hope he's listening. Ran into some issues with my fire marshal, and contacted my county commissioners and really got no help. And had to fight all the way to the state level and won my case. And but he did delay me about 3 months moving into my facility, and that hurt me pretty bad. And classic story, I was at a party, and I was talking about it, and someone said, well, why don't you run for commissioner? I was like, well, what's a commissioner do? I had no idea. And in Currituck County, there's no municipality, so when you're a county commissioner, you're the government. And I had served on a workforce development board and kind of got a taste of what it felt to really help folks that needed help and kind of change people's lives and for the better, and give them another opportunity. And I got a charge out of that, quite frankly. And so I ran for commissioner and won. And about 2 weeks before I got sworn in, they said, "Hey, how you feel about being the chairman?" I was like, "You got to be kidding me!" So I said, "Well, if that's what we need, then that's what we need." So I got sworn in. 5 minutes later, I was the chairman of the Currituck Board of Commissioners. I mean, I guess the pickings were slim that day. So I was serving for a year, and we had redistricting, state level redistricting. And we were losing our senator. He was getting redistricted, and he decided he was going to run for Senate. So I started doing my due diligence, checking out who was going to be my opponent. And I was getting some Hail Mary calls from folks going, we need someone in there. And so I started looking. And about a week before filing started, they called me and said, "How you feel about running for the House of Representatives?" And the air must have been thin that day. So I said, flippantly said, "Well, if you can't find someone, then I'll run." And sure enough, nobody stepped up. So I decided to run for the House of Representatives. And I won a primary, then won a general election, and served 4 years in the House of Representatives. It's pretty remarkable. High school graduate, project of South Philly. It's like the American dream, man. It's remarkable. I always taught my daughter, opportunities don't come along every day. So when they do, you need to walk through that door and see what's behind it. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of how I've lived the representative life. And again, we had redistricting last year, and my district kind of got split in half. And I was going to have to run a primary against my seatmate here in the General Assembly. He lives in Edenton, and we're not doing that. We'll flip a coin before we're going to run against each other. And then the Senate approached me about running for a Senate seat in a newly drawn district. Well, not to get too involved, but it drew out to be a D5, which means it favored a Democrat by 5 points. So I probably had about a 40% chance of winning, and I thought, those odds are pretty good. Let's roll with it. So worked real hard and had a great team, and man, it was just a tremendous campaign. A lot of effort, a lot of miles, a lot of days. People at home, my wife, my daughter, just so supportive, and friends, everybody just really rallying behind it. And, we won the election. So now I'm a senator in the state of North Carolina.
A couple of things I'd like to just draw out there that I think are really interesting and unique. And I can tell you're being humble and telling your story. But, I think there's also something to say about people recognizing values. And whether they're leadership values or just personal ethics and morals, and how the folks that said, "Hey, look, let's have you lead our county commissioner board, be our chairman," and then hey, there's this opportunity. We want somebody that's going to represent us and represent us well in the state house, and continuing to push you up, and I think that's remarkable. But I think it's also speaks volumes for our veteran community, and not to dismiss what your parents taught you, but I'm sure just hearing how quickly you responded to a leader that influenced you and had an impact in your life in the military. And I'd like to just hear some of your thoughts about how many veterans are moving into politics, and it seems to be a big wave of veterans that are getting involved in their communities.
They are, and in particular, local politics. I live in the Northeast, so Currituck borders Virginia, which, Tidewater's the home of the largest naval base in the world. So we're getting a lot of military in the Northeast, and folks calling me say, "Hey, I want to step up. I want to get involved. I want to make the community better." And the values that you possess when you come out of the military are second to none. Duty, honor, commitment, they all ring true, I think, for the rest of your life. And folks have a natural calling to serve, and it's great that they're doing it. We are getting more veterans in the General Assembly, which is fantastic, which helps us, really promote and move along, awareness for our veterans and all the struggles that they have either while they're in the service or when they get out of the service.
Yeah, agreed. I think nationally the trend has been downward with veteran serving. I think if you go back to the 70s, it was something like 70% of our national elected representatives, Congress, Senate, had previously served, and that was probably due in large part because there were just more veterans, right?
Oh, yeah.
There were just more veterans that were out of the military and coming to lead, and then that nationally that figure has dropped way down to less than 10% now, and we really need and because if you think about it, right, so nationally it's our Congress and our Senate, and they're the ones that are basically sending folks into harm's way, and it's really good to have representative of people who have been there and done that to make those decisions, so they're not based out of context, right? So
that's right, and I think a big factor in so many military being in politics back then was we had the draft.
Yeah.
You didn't really have an option. If you weren't going to college or whatever, then you went in the military.
And I'll just give a shout out here just before our break to our Vietnam veterans. They come home, they were involved, they felt wronged, and they wanted to make sure that the next generation didn't experience the same thing. And that's who we owe for our benefits and for our successes that the military has experienced. And so thankful for their service, just to give them a shout out now, and just encourage listeners out there, get involved. Don't stand by idly and wait for somebody else to do it. Do your part and make our communities better. And so we'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. You're listening to Putting the Pieces Back Together, presented by Purple Heart Homes. And up next, Torch will lead the session.
happened.
Difficult thing I deal with.
All right, so you're back listening to Putting the Pieces Back Together, presented by Purple Heart Homes. We had a very special guest, but as soon as we went to close for a break, she went running out the door. I don't know why.
Well, I think
puzzled.
somebody put her on the spot and said she was in charge of the next segment.
I don't
and
know
then,
anybody that
boom,
puts
she was
anybody on
gone.
the spot.
No,
Yeah.
nobody in this room would do that.
She does have a really cool voice for radio. though.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I picture Carrie maybe like a late night radio host
I
playing
don't
old
think
70s
he
songs.
meant that.
Is that like saying I have a face for radio?
No, not at all.
Right, don't go there.
Offended.
Not at all. You inferred that. I said you had a cool voice.
Yeah.
Implied nothing.
So while we're talking about looks and image, let's turn back to the senator here, and I want to hear about this healthy competition that's in the State House on flamboyant coats.
Oh, yes.
and cool bow ties.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so where it started for me was, I'm a blue collar guy. I had one suit, weddings, funerals, one tie, had surfboards on it. When I became a commissioner, I was like, I got to get some clothes. And I was out shopping and saw this really crazy blue paisley sport coat, and I bought it, and I said I'll wear it to a party or something, and ended up wearing it my first day as a commissioner with a bow tie, and everyone was like, "Man, that is awesome! What are you wearing next week?"
Yep.
And so it began.
Yes.
So in 6 years now, I've accumulated 83 sport coats, and anywhere from sequins to red, white, and blue to stars and stripes to gangster to you name it, I've got it. I've got seersuckers with pink flamingos on them, all kind of shiny jackets, you name it, I've got it. And I've been up here a couple of weeks, and I was walking across the breezeway with the Speaker of the House, and he asked me how everything was going. I said, things are going good. And he said, I was talking about you last night. One of my buddies asked, what's up with Hanig and all those jackets? And the Speaker told him, he said, well, you've been up here 2 weeks. We have 33 freshmen. Who else's name do you know?
No, that's right.
It's just stuck, and it's truly remarkable. I mean, I've had 2 TV interviews about my sport coats, and just countless stuff coming from it. And it lightens things up a little bit. When I was a commissioner, I had to go before the board of commissioners before I was a commissioner, and it was very intimidating. Mm-hmm. And I was like, when I became a commissioner, I said, I want people to know that I'm approachable. I'm just a guy. I'm just up here. I go to work every day when I'm not up here, and let them know we're just people. And if you can't approach me with what I wear, then you can't approach anyone. Mm-hmm. So it's a nice distraction. We deal with a lot of heavy stuff. Oftentimes, and just to have that little bit of levity, it goes a long way. I actually did a prayer. It was a very contentious time, and I think it was 2020. Very contentious time between the Republicans and the Democrat, and we give the prayer every day, and you can volunteer to give it, and I did the important stuff, and then then I went into, and I'm paraphrasing, but thank you, Lord, for giving me such incredible fashion sense, so that I may make someone's life better or something like that. And it was just real light, and the whole place erupted laughing. And the Speaker leaned over. He said, "Bobby, I've never seen it. I've never laughed after a prayer before. That was fantastic."
That's good.
It's what we needed. It's and Representative McNeely. Same thing out there in the western part of the state. He's got all the cool stuff, and he just doesn't have good shoes, man.
Well, there might be a few other things too, but we still like him.
Yeah. Jeff's from our neck. He's from our neck of the woods.
We got to tighten him up a little bit.
Yeah. He's got pants to go along with his too. I've seen him wearing matching outlandish jackets and pants.
Yeah.
So it's pretty fantastic.
Well,
I've got a few suits, but typically it's sport coats.
We're going to send you one of our Purple Heart Homes bow ties so you can add that into your collection, and it'll help you look good.
Yeah, that's right.
Please do. And I'm a Patriot Guard rider, and typically the riders, when you join, they give you your nickname, and so my ride name's Bowtie, and that's perfect.
Yeah. You got a bow tie. You got a leather bow tie that you wear when you're riding your Harley?
I don't have a leather bow tie, but I've got feathers and wood and acrylic and everything else.
That's awesome.
That poses lots of questions.
Yeah,
I
lots of questions.
I know.
So let's kind of transition here a little bit while we're talking about the work that you're doing there in the State House. What types of projects and what types of things are you working on now, and how does your service in the military inform you in the things that you're doing? Speaking of the naval base that's there in your community.
Right. So, I'll back up a little bit. In the previous session, we eliminated the income tax on military retirees on their retirement plan in the state of North Carolina, which is remarkable. You would be amazed at how difficult that was to make happen. Folks don't understand, what people go through in the military. And, sometimes folks have the mentality of, well, they volunteered for it. Well, back in the day, people didn't get to volunteer. They were drafted. Mm-hmm. And, so, that made a difference for folks. And so we've done so much over the last 10 years for the veterans. I've got a list here that's 3 pages long of everything we've done. So just continue working on that. Continue to work on awareness. I don't believe people fully understand the impacts of what happens to folks when they go off to war and they come back. They just don't get it. And I have those conversations with folks at home, and their eyes open wide. They're like, "Wow, that's remarkable. I had no idea." Mm-hmm. And the long-term effects of that. So just continue to working on the veterans issues. We've got some great veterans in here that we talk all the time, and we're always trying to find ways to help them. And the biggest thing is increasing awareness. In last session we allocated money for the new Veterans Hospital, and like I said, I've got 2.5 pages of stuff we've done for the veterans. For me, it's I'm working on various things. From anything from Good Samaritan laws, which are, has to deal with overdose issues, firearm storage, how folks store their firearms, educational legislation, small business retirement program. I run a small business. I don't know how to run the stock market, how to do all that stuff. So, a lot of my employees, they don't have retirement savings. Mm-hmm. And if we don't get that under control in the state, we're going to pay for that long term.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things,
stuff like that, graduation paths. In North Carolina, you only have a one path to graduation, and that's through the UNC system, and it isn't working. Mm-hmm. The percentage of folks that graduate from a 4-year degree in North Carolina is atrocious. Mm-hmm. So working on implementing some type of a career path for folks. Start them in high school. They can come out of high school through the COA programs and, have a certificate in HVAC or welding or whatever it is, and make a good living with no college debt. I would have been one of those candidates for sure. I never had an aspiration for college. It took me 19 years to graduate high school, and I think they were just tired of looking at me. So, true story, man. It's, some folks just aren't made for it.
One of the things that I've understood is being really pushed here in North Carolina. Many states have a zero property tax basis for veterans that are 100% disabled, and I understand that's a discussion that's happened in North Carolina State. Where does that sit, and how would you see that impacting our state?
Well, we haven't got the economic impact on it yet. I think it would be a huge economic impact. But yeah, we're having those discussions about that. I've talked with a couple of folks about it. I hope it gets some traction. And it might be an age thing. When you reach a certain age, maybe start at that. To take the big chunk all at once is going to be a heavy lift with folks that just don't understand the issues.
And when you say economic impact, that could be positive or negative, correct?
It can be both, yes, sir. Yeah. Folks are retiring. My dad retired 23 years in the Navy at 43 years old, had a whole nother career with General Electric. They moved from Virginia to North Carolina because of the taxes. Mm-hmm. And now it's even greater, a greater benefit in North Carolina. So you get those folks and they're having second careers, they're buying homes, they're buying cars, they're sitting, their spouses are working, they're bringing more money into the state than we're forgiving on an income tax or on a property tax.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that I love about North Carolina, many states claim to be the most patriotic, but one of the claims that I've heard over the years is that we're one of the most veteran friendly, and that we do a lot for our veterans. We got a huge veteran population. We border back and forth between ranking of number 4 and number 5 for the most veterans in any state in the country. And just how does that make you feel as a veteran representing, literally 1 million veterans in North Carolina?
Oh, it's incredible. It's a privilege for me, and I'm proud of what we've done. Like I said, over the last 10 to 12 years, the list of things is absolutely remarkable. The hundreds of millions of dollars that we've put into veterans issues is truly amazing, and I think that's what keeps folks here. Mm-hmm. And my thing when we were really pushing the retirement, not taxing military retirement, my number one argument was exactly what you said. We tout ourselves as the most military friendly. Let's put our money where our mouth is. Mm-hmm. So let's keep doing it. That's pretty neat.
One other question here, somewhat of a controversial question in the veteran space. How do you feel about the renaming of Fort Bragg?
How many times are they going to rename it?
Well, that's kind of the way I look at it, right?
I don't.
Do you see that having see that having an impact in people in the veterans community?
I don't think it has an impact on the veterans community. I just I don't like how we are being so how do I say that without really pissing a bunch of people off?
I wanted to see how politically minded you were.
I wasn't. I've only been in politics 6 years, so sometimes I lose track of what I'm supposed to be saying. So, enough with the wokeness. How about that?
There you go. I like it.
It's just absurd to me. From our heritage is our heritage, whether it's the military or 250 years ago. Times change, people change, laws change. But if we don't hold on to that, then we don't learn our lessons.
Yeah, I think too. If you're gonna rename something, there are literally dozens of people that have served this country, that gave their life for this country, that during the current conflicts, that you could name a base after, right?
Well,
There's dozens of Medal of Honor winners that are no longer with us that you could honor them by naming a base after them.
I think if we really wanted to, we could find something wrong in Sir Walter Raleigh's history in his lifetime that we ought to rename Raleigh.
Yeah,
right. I mean, maybe we can always find something negative about somebody.
I heard he was an outlandish dresser.
Yeah, I heard that he couldn't sail a boat in a straight line.
That's right. That's what I heard. Lots of things. He did make good pipe tobacco.
We could rename it Bobby Wood.
I love it. That's what I'm voting for. That's
awesome.
Yeah.
Bobby Wood. Yeah. Well, we got a new motto.
Yeah. So, I just again want to say just thank you for your service. What an incredible story. And, I think so often our veterans come out of service and they feel maybe a little broken, maybe a little damaged, maybe a little even depressed. And we need to hear the stories of success and stories of people still making an impact and continuing to live their values. And I hope that there's some veterans out there that are listening that have heard your story, that are inspired, that they'll get involved, whether in their local community, local politics, starting a small business, being able to get out and serve. Just don't give up. Just continue to press forward, adapt and overcome, because your service is still needed. And Senator, thank you for what you've continued to do.
Yeah,
thank you guys, and let's just keep raising awareness. I truly appreciate what you guys are doing for these folks. Again, it's a calling. Y'all aren't doing it for the right reasons, and it's just beyond commendable what y'all do, and I'm glad to be part of it.
Hey, thanks for being on today, Senator. We really appreciate it. If you are out there and you're listening, you've been to combat and you've been struggling with that, I do want to announce that starting February 21st at Purple Heart Homes, we'll be running another Reboot Combat Recovery course that I lead along with our friend, another combat veteran, Lindsay Grindle, a female combat veteran. We'll be leading that. It's going to go for 6 weeks, and it's free, no cost to any veteran or their spouse or their loved one. And we feed you some good food, and it's a life-changing and transforming type class, and gives you the tools that you need to overcome and get on your way.
Now, will there be a Zoom link where people can Zoom in if they're not able to be
We're
in
not
person?
going to Zoom this one. This is an in-person class only, but we... there
are other reboots in other parts of the country as well.
And their reboot is all over the country, not only for combat veterans, but for first responders.
How do people find those locations?
They can go to rebootrecovery.com and do a search for any location. Ours will be found underneath Statesville, North Carolina, at Purple Heart Homes.
Oh, that's fantastic. And who's our guest next week?
Our guest next week is Kenny Harden, Air Force veteran, who has started a place called the Veterans Social Center in Salisbury, North Carolina, in the old mall. He's doing great things for those folks over there, and so can't wait to have him on.
We are so excited, and next week we'll have returning special guest Torch,
Oh.
who will be supporting and continuing her training to fill in for Devil Dog when he's out.
Have a great week, everybody. Thank you so much.
You've been listening to Putting the Pieces Back Together with John Galena and Brad Borders. Join us again next Tuesday at 8 a.m. and Saturday at 5 p.m. for Putting the Pieces Back Together on News Talk WSIC.